Hey guys, it's Alice. So I'm going to be looking a little bit different in this video. It was actually my first interview that I ever did with the interviewee. His name is GQ. I did this interview all the way back in April of 2024, and it is now May of 2025. So it's been a while, obviously. Me and Annabelle have learned a lot more about interviewing and the type of style that we wanted to go forward with. But in this interview, things are a little bit more formal and a little bit more rigid because it was just my first time doing it. So in this interview, GQ talks about his experience going to Penn and eventually leaving to go to FIU and pursue engineering here instead. And I found his insight very, very insightful, especially in the experience of going to an Ivy League school and still choosing to come back to a state school that maybe doesn't look as good on paper, but was actually a very good decision for him. So if you're someone who's been thinking about transferring schools, if you feel like you're experiencing a lot of imposter syndrome in a more unique way, like let's say you're not experiencing imposter syndrome like according to your self-doubt, but more like feeling you're not in the right place or you're not where you feel like you belong, I recommend this episode for you. Hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. So at any time, if you're uncomfortable or you don't want to talk about something, that's perfectly fine. Just let me know. We can move on to the next subject.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, awesome. So could you please state your name, your undergraduate graduation date, and what you're currently working on in your academic career, whether that's going into grad school, graduating into the workforce, or what have you?
So my name is Gabriel Quiroz. I'm graduating this semester, spring 2024, with a degree in interdisciplinary engineering, and my concentration or second or area of focus is industrial engineering. And as for academic or like what I'm planning professionally is once I graduate, I have a job lined up for software consulting here in Miami.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So could you describe a little bit about your undergraduate experience to me in as much detail as you want, including any particular milestones or any special dates that you have, emotions that you felt during while you were studying, any extracurricular activities that you've done, hobbies, things like that.
Yeah, okay. So I guess we'll be here for a couple minutes.
Yeah, go
I
ahead. Don't worry. Go
originally,
ahead.
yeah, I originally graduated from high school in 2019, and fall of 2019, I attended the University of Pennsylvania to study mechanical engineering. And I was there for maybe like a semester and a half before COVID hit. During that
Uh,
time, I got involved, yeah, during that time, I got involved in the Penn Aerospace Club. I originally went into mechanical engineering because I thought I wanted to do aerospace. And I thought, what better way to join an aerospace club? And even though it was fun, but it was pretty challenging. And it was my freshman year. I didn't know anything about aerodynamics. And after that experience, I was like, okay, that was a good experience, but I don't think aerospace is for me. So that was like mid spring 2020. And I came back to Miami. I did Penn virtually up until fall of 2022, when finally they were like, okay, we're gonna have classes in person now. During that time, I I wanted to boost up my GPA, so I ended up taking I think 6 classes online during the fall 2020. But then I was burnt out by the end because I was like, oh, like while everybody's taking a break, maybe I should be taking more classes. And since it's all online, I can get good grades and boost my GPA. But like I ended up getting all A's, but by the end I was burnt out. So the next semester I only ended up taking 4 classes, which is the same had I taken 5 and 5. So that was definitely a learning experience. And fall 2022, I think we're at 2021. Trying to remember. Where basically I finished my sophomore year, all virtual, and then my junior year, I went back up in person, and I got more involved in this salsa club because it was hard to find a community at Penn, being born and raised here in Miami. So I was like,
right.
oh, like if I'm gonna find a community, it'll be with the Hispanics in the salsa club. But even then, I still didn't feel like I fit in the sense that like it's not that it wasn't so much imposter syndrome in the sense that I felt like I deserved to be there. I was getting good grades. Um, and I was like up to par with my classmates. But regarding their priorities, their cultural backgrounds, their just the way that they viewed life and where they came from, it was just not on the same level. So the salsa club didn't work out, and that's when I was like, well, if that was like my last shot at trying to find a place at Penn for me. And since that didn't work out, I decided to take a gap semester while I reanalyzed my life. So okay, there we go. Now we're in spring 2022. I take my gap semester, and during that semester, I decide to leave Penn and transfer to FIU for two main reasons. One was because I had done a couple of internships and I learned that I didn't want to do just engineering. I wanted to do something more like engineering management, where I'm still working with a team of engineers, but I'm not the one doing the calculations. And Penn being a very traditional school, their disciplines were somewhat limited. Um, so I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for in my studies. Um, and the second reason was because long term, my goal was to work in South Florida. And as valuable as my network was up there at Penn, all my networks were either in the Northeast or in the West Coast. So it didn't really make sense for me to make the sacrifice to stick it through Penn if it didn't align with my professional goals. So I transferred to FIU to do interdisciplinary engineering that mixes engineering, business, and design, which is a lot more aligned to what I wanted to do. And fall 2022 was my first semester. I knew that if I'm leaving an Ivy League for a public university back home, then I need to make the most of it. And I got involved with eco engineering, that they build an electric car basically every year. And I was their business and sponsorship chair that first semester. So I just helped them raise funds. And I also applied to be the professional development chair for another club called SHEP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, but they rejected me. So I was like, okay, I'll just stick with eco. Second semester at FIU, spring 2023, I I kept doing eco and I applied to be again, same position for SHEP, uh, professional development chair, something like that, or events chair. And this time they accepted me. And the good thing about this was that that semester, all of the e-board was basically graduating. So there was all these open spots. And because of my involvement, they're like, hey, like we need someone to be president. You should run for president. So like I spoke to the president, just to see like how the position was. And like being the president of a club was always trying to go into engineering management. Just the president role would be great for my professional development. So then I ended up running. I got the position. So this was at the end of spring 2023, my second semester at Penn. I mean at FIU. And since then, that's been my main focus or my main involvement here at FIU, which is president of SHEP from May of last year to basically now, in which I'm graduating.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you. I think that pretty much sums everything up.
Cool, thank you for that. So I'm curious, what made you realize that you wanted to pursue management and engineering versus hands-on?
Yeah, so I used to do robotics in high school. So I knew I liked the technical stuff. I was like, great, I'm gonna go into engineering. I like this. I knew that much. But talking to peers, like they seem like really excited to be doing these calculations or these classes. And I did my first internship for the city of Oakland Park. I think it's in Broward, here in Florida. And I got exposed a little to how engineers work versus how like the project managers work, that are leading this team of engineers. So already from there, I like the project management side. Um, and then especially after my experience at the Penn Aerospace Club, I realized that even though I could do the calculations, I could learn the stuff, it's not something that really like drove me. I realized that what really drove me is working with people.
Right.
Um, and at that point, I thought engineers were, there was less social skills and interpersonal skills involved in being an engineer than there was in managing a team of engineers. So I think it was the main thing was talking to people, leading people, helping people. Um, yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing. And then my second internship was a product management intern for a dog food startup. So then that's when I got exposed to product management. I was like, oh, like this I like, you know. Um, I also like being creative and like inventing stuff. But as an engineer, usually you just invent what you're told to invent. As a product manager, you have a little more freedom of what's being invented. So I like the freedom and the autonomy that comes with upper level management.
Yeah, I know. Usually engineering is known as like not like the most like social type of major, like like the type of people in engineering. So that's interesting
Yeah,
trying to like incorporate that. And there are spaces
yeah,
for that.
for sure. Hard to find, but there are.
Yeah, they're there. Yeah, that's interesting. So you talked about feeling imposter syndrome while you were at Penn and trying to find like your place, and you felt like you were struggling to do that. And also when you came to FIU, you were trying to apply to these clubs and originally you got rejected. And any other like adversities or low times you may have struggled with as an undergraduate student. How did you overcome them? How did you find what motivated you to keep going?
I think a lot of it had to do with a good sense of self-worth to some extent. So, like at Penn, the imposter syndrome, I feel like the typical imposter syndrome is, oh, like I don't belong here in the sense that like I'm not smart enough to be here. But because of that self-worth, I was like, no, like I do deserve to be here. It's just, do I want to be here? And that kind of gave me the freedom of leaving Penn if I wanted to, not because I didn't belong there, but because if anything, like it was the other way around. It's kind of like it wasn't like Penn was like breaking up with me in the sense that like, oh, you don't belong here. It's like me breaking up with Penn. Like, you know what? I don't really want to be here, even though I can, and I could make it here, but
Right.
like we just don't align. So I think that helped with that aspect of the imposter syndrome, and also with the clubs because when I first started at FIU, I was just a member of SHEP, the one that rejected me the first semester. And I knew that I really liked it. Um, because I joined their intramural soccer team and here I was like playing soccer with a bunch of engineering students who also spoke Spanish, which is something that I was able to find so easily at FIU that I couldn't find at Penn. So that already, I was like, okay, like I belong in this space and I want to be in this space. Um, Let me see if I can move up. And then once I got rejected, I was like, okay, like it's also somewhat of a growth mindset also. I don't know if that's the right term, but knowing that just because like one door closes, it's like, okay, like I move on to the next thing. So that's why I was still part of eco. And when I was part of eco for like doing business sponsorship, I then applied to this other club called Init, which was like, way bigger than eco. Eco was like had just started. It was a very small club. Their budget was like around $10,000 a year. Then Init, or before it was UPE, their budget was like over 100,000. It was like 150,000. And so I was like, okay, like if once Chef said no, I was like, maybe it's because I need to like go somewhere else and like move up somewhere else. I ended up getting the position at this huge club, but they were telling me like, oh, you can't recruit sponsors for both eco and for us for Init. So you would have to drop eco. but I had told Eco because they were such a new club that I would help them fundraise for the rest of the school year. So I decided to tell in it like, listen, I can join you if you let me finish sponsoring for Eco, but if not, like I'm not gonna just ditch them. Uh, so then they were like, yeah, sorry, like conflict of interest, we're gonna have to let you go. And that was like, I was really excited for that position in that club because their club is filled with product managers and
Yeah,
it really aligned to what I wanted to do.
yeah, yeah,
But because that door closed, that would have been like a year-long thing from January to December. Um, when I got rejected, then the opportunity for Shep president came up, and I ended up being Shep president. So, so I think with all these experiences, knowing my self-worth, knowing that okay, like I do have something to offer, that gave me the assurance, I guess, that even if one person says no, someone's gonna say yes, and usually that second yes is gonna be a better opportunity.
yeah, yeah. So kind of like sticking to your guns and like knowing what, you want, and there's gonna be better out there.
Right.
Oh, it's awesome. Um, okay, so obviously since you said that you kind of went through the process of realizing that like managing teams is more of your interest than like just like the hard engineering. What do you think about your path into the tech workforce and particularly with engineering? Do you feel like it's different from others? And how did that affect you, knowing that you maybe were like trying to find your way?
Yeah, it was definitely hard because I was surrounded by people who wanted to be engineers, and I was like I don't really want to do that.
Yeah,
And because of that, it was also harder to find opportunities, and I had to go a little outside my comfort zone, like uh dog food startup. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing at a dog food startup, but I can't really find an experience within what I want. So I have to kind of open up my horizon a little more and maybe take opportunities that don't perfectly align. But it ended up being a good thing because I wasn't so focused on engineering. I was like, okay, I want to do engineering management, hard to get an engineering management internship. So I just have to like find roles that will give me transferable skills that
right.
allowed me to apply for internships that had nothing to do with engineering, like this dog food startup where I learned about like product management, about working for a startup, wearing multiple hats, just juggling different things at the same time, and working on a limited budget. And then my third internship was like a virtual consulting internship where me and a team of like five other people were consulting an aquarium in South Africa. So in that sense, it's like I don't know of any other engineering student at Penn or at FIU that would do that, especially because both those two have nothing to do with engineering.
Yeah.
But because of that consulting internship, I was able to get this software consulting job. But suddenly now it has to do with engineering and software. So it kind of forced me to get experience in other areas and other industries, which is people always recommend doing as an undergrad. Like, oh, like even if you don't think you'll like it, just try it, and you'll be surprised that you'll learn something about yourself. Either you learn that you like it or you don't like it, but you'll learn. Um, and even though people say that a lot, not a lot of people do it. And in my case, I was kind of forced to do it just because of the lack of opportunities that I found, and it ended up working out. So I think that's like the main difference between my experience and other engineering students.
So yeah, I mean that's very true. I'm a computer science student, so like I understand like it's sometimes you feel like kind of like stuck in one role and it's like there's like nothing else available. You kind of have to
Yeah,
like make your own like path essentially to it. So
exactly.
um how did you find these like opportunities?
So, okay, my the first one was just like I guess a family friend who
Mhm.
happens to be the city manager of Oakland Park. and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for interns for for our engineering department. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I think in that sense, what helped was yeah, I feel like typically freshmen, especially at FIU, it's like you don't really do anything your first summer. It's like maybe you work, get some money on the side, but you don't really do an internship. A lot of people wait for their junior year to do an internship. So I think in that sense, to get that first internship, even though it was pretty easy to get, and it was like basically handed to me because of a family friend, um, it was important that like I voiced like, hey, I want to do something. I want to do an internship this freshman year because I took that initiative. Then that opportunity came up. So that was the number one. And what I learned was just like always look for opportunity, even if you don't think you'll qualify. You never know who knows who.
Right.
For the second one, there was a virtual career fair um, that I think on Handshake or something, and I went through the list and I was looking for product management, and the only one that I found was this company called Breed Science that they were looking for a product management intern. And because it was a startup, you can schedule like one-on-ones with a company rep, but the company rep ended up being like the founder and CEO, and he was just like doing
Oh, wow.
one-on-ones with with students.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember exactly how the conversation went. I just remember the conversation went really well. He was um very chill to the point where like at the end of the conversation he's like, oh, okay, I'll reach back out to you in a couple of days. And in my head, or like I think it's like, oh, to discuss more in detail about like the internship. And by the end of the conversation I was like, I couldn't tell if he had just offered me the internship or not. um so yeah, that was just a virtual career fair that I did my research and found this company that I was offering the role I wanted. And the last one was someone dropped a link in a group chat of like, hey, there's this consulting um like development program. I did it, you guys should do it too. And I did more research. And because it's a development program, it's like supposed to teach students how to be consultants. They don't actually, it's not a paid internship and it's not even an unpaid internship. It's like they're charging students to go through this program.
Oh.
Yeah. Which like I mean it makes sense because there was all these like Ivy League students part of it. So I was like, I mean, they have the money, that's their target audience, so it makes sense to charge. But me, I'm like, I'm not really part of that target audience where I could just, pay for experience
Right.
instead of getting paid. So I originally said, oh, like, what, forget it. And I don't know, I think I was like still struggling to find anything for the summer for my
Mhm.
junior year. And I was like, you know what, like let me do more research again. So I go back. I double check and I'm like, okay, yeah, I have to pay. But then I saw that there was a scholarship that they offered. So I was like, okay, I'll apply. So the scholarship you only get like after you get in. So like I'll apply to the program. And if I do get in, then I'll apply for the scholarship. And if I get the scholarship, then I'll stay. If I don't, then I just won't do it. And I think that's one thing that I also learned in high school, applying to the Ivy Leagues in the first place. Like usually people don't apply because they're like, oh, I can't afford that. But they offer a surprising amount of financial aid. And I feel like people usually like count themselves out or take themselves out of the race before they even let like the other side tell them what the final offer is.
Right.
So I always tell like the high school students that I talk to them, like even if you don't think you can afford it, like apply and then make a decision based off the financial aid package. Don't apply just because you like, no, like I won't get in, or it'll be too expensive if I do get in, or I won't, So I ended up applying super last minute, and that's how I got the third one. And then the job that I have lined up was through the FIU career fair. Again, I just did my research. There was like 3 career fairs last semester. It was all majors, technical majors, and then internships. And I've learned that what I'm looking for doesn't really fall under technical at this point. So I think what helped was looking at the all majors, even though as an engineer,
Mhm.
you would probably just look at the technical majors. And that's where I found the company advisors at the All Majors career fair. Did a couple of research. I went up to them in person, and they set up an interview, and it just kept going like that.
So I'm actually interested about the virtual career fair because I know they aren't as common. But
Yeah,
do you think it's a good like resource to networking?
I think it's good. At the very least, you get to learn about companies, and maybe you find a company that you're interested in, and you know after you've
Oh my gosh.
oh
Sorry, give me 2 seconds.
no, it's okay. Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
never mind. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I think at the very least you get to learn what companies you like, what companies you don't like, and if they do have one-on-ones, then it gives you a chance to work on your elevator pitch, on your just interpersonal skills. Um, Even if you don't end up liking what the company says, it's kind of like practice. You're warming up for so that when the opportunity comes for a company that you do like, it's not the first time that you're having a one-on-one conversation with like the CEO of a company, and you're not nervous, and you get to keep it cool, and you get to be sociable. So I do think it's worth it, and it's also because it's virtual, it's very convenient. You don't like you just have to have. I feel like in-person career fairs can be intimidating because it's all these tables, and you have to
Yeah,
have all these resumes, and
yeah.
your body language is super visible. You have to wait in these lines. But then virtually, you just set up an appointment, you log in when your appointment is like at the time of your appointment, and you maybe have like one digital copy of your resume. So I think it's a great, if someone's never been to a career fair, a virtual career fair is a great place to start to learn
Mhm.
how to talk to these company recruiters.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I went to my first career fair this semester, and I just went in person, and it's super like it's crazy.
Yeah,
Because like you want to be the first one there because after a while the recruiters are just gonna, not really
yeah,
remember who you are. And then the
yeah,
resumes and everything. So yeah, that's a great resource.
yeah, for sure. What do you, so you said computer science?
Mhm.
Nice. Are you by any chance involved in SHEP?
I'm not. I'm actually in it.
Oh, okay,
And
nice.
I'm in it and Wix. If you've heard
Oh,
of Wix.
perfect. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
women in computer
Um,
science.
yeah. So I know like the tech clubs here are getting like super big.
Yeah,
I'm actually trying to apply for a position on the Wix right now. So
awesome.
yeah,
Nice.
hopefully I got it. So I
Yeah, it'll be good
understand the
too.
process.
Yeah. Well, if you ever are looking for a place to, I'd have to check, or maybe you can check, but the Chef National Convention, they hand out like a lot of jobs there. And again, like, it's like, I don't know how many times we're in the FIU career fair, and that reminded me, makes you like, yeah, like it was kind of like this big, somewhat daunting thing. And like the Chef National Convention is like huge. But a lot of our members that end up going leave with an offer. So maybe for next year, it's in first week of November. So maybe
Okay.
worth looking into. Maybe if there's some companies that you like, they do hand out a lot of, they do a lot of on the spot interviews, and sometimes even offers.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, cool. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit and ask, how do you can you first describe your work-life balance and has it fluctuated throughout your undergraduate experience? Has it at times felt more work than life or more life than work? And how do you find the balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. Being at Penn, I feel like there's like three main things. Usually there's work and then there's life, but then there's also extracurriculars, which isn't really homework, but
Yeah,
it's not really like social. Like you are socializing in some of these extracurriculars,
yeah,
but it's like you're not going out, you're not, like with your friends outside of the club.
yeah.
So for me, it was like those three things. Luckily, work was only, in my case, school. Um, I'm fortunate enough to not have to have, like, I never had to work a part-time job while in school, so I can't speak on that. But regarding balancing schoolwork, extracurriculars, and just social life, I will say at the beginning, it was okay, first semester, college is new, so you end up spending a lot more on class. And maybe you don't really know a lot of people. So most of your time probably goes towards class time, not so much extracurriculars and maybe a little bit of social life. My second semester, I was like, okay, I kind of got the hang of the class part. Let me, like find my community at Penn. And that's when I really try to get involved with the extracurriculars. And I think at that point, I ended up getting a little burnt out right before the pandemic happened, where all my time was going to like trying to get good grades, trying to get straight A's in my classes, and also being very involved in my extracurriculars, both for professional development and also for like social purposes. And that was a little hard to, especially being away from home, it was hard to balance because like if you're at home and you're living with your parents, it's like, oh, like you see your parents when you go home or in the morning or like on the weekends. But if you're away from home, then you're only going to talk to your parents if you call them. And if you call them, you have to make time for it. And if you never make time for them, then you're never going to talk to them. And I was also in a long distance relationship, so like same thing applied. So that was freshman year. I think I overdid it with the getting good grades and trying to get the most out of Penn because I was like, oh, if I'm here, I have to get the most of it. And I barely dedicated any time to the people back home. And looking back, I think I could have done a better job. Uh, sophomore year, like I mentioned, I took 6 classes, trying to like again get good grades and raise my GPA. That was also a mistake. I ended up getting burnt out, and at this point, like I was still here in Miami, but all my time was going to classes. There was no extracurriculars, and social life was very limited. So that I think I overdid it, and I think that's when I realized that after that semester, like it doesn't. I don't need a 4.0, or I don't need to get straight A's. Um, there's like the saying, C's to get degrees. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like maybe not C's, but maybe a B. I should be happy with a B, and like I shouldn't worry about trying to inflate my GPA. So that was a turning point where I realized I don't have to get straight A's, especially if the difference between a B and an A requires like 10 plus hours a week. Kind of like the 80-20 rule, where it's like I can get 80, no, what is it? The last 20% will take 80% of my time. So if I just don't worry about the 20%, then unless all of a sudden I have all this time.
Right.
So that was important. And that's why the following semester I only took 4 classes. And here at FIU, I think has been my best work-life balance because the classes that I've taken have been easier to manage. So I can get good grades without spending all this time and all my waking hours studying and everything because I had already taken all the hard classes. And then with extracurriculars, instead of doing a bunch, I only did basically one, and I really delved into that one and I grew inside that one. So first it was eco, and then I transitioned to SHEP, and that's really the only club that I've been super active in. So that was another thing. Like instead of being part of aerospace and salsa club, and there was one for like multicultural language and this and that, like just quality instead of quantity.
Right.
And then that allowed me to have more time for my social life and also prioritizing my social life. I remember one time like I was on vacation, but I had to do a final. So I was like, okay, how much time do I want to study for this final that I have during this vacation? And there was at one point where I was like, okay, I can either spend like a couple more hours studying and maybe get like a really good grade on my final, or I can just like I'm fine with this 70 or an 80 on the final, and I can enjoy this low key like once in a lifetime type vacation. So just also realizing that the GPA will only matter as long as you're in college. And as soon as you get that first job, out of college, it's like, okay, like we don't care about your GPA anymore. Now we just care about your job. So if
Right,
you're
right.
sacrificing all these life experiences over and over and over for something that won't last very long, as opposed to life experiences that you look back on for years and enjoy, I think that also helped me realize that, GPAs are temporary. As long as you're not like doing really bad in your GPA, and as long as it won't affect your possibility of getting a job, then
Mhm,
you can dedicate to other stuff.
mhm. Wow, that's a very good point. So I'm curious, is there anything at UPenn that you feel is not at FIU and you wish was there? Because I know that you said that there were a lot of things about UPenn that made you feel that the school didn't really fit you. But is there anything there that you feel could be incorporated at FIU?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is academics, which is like the expected answer. Regarding extracurriculars, honestly, the Penn Aerospace Club didn't have a lot of support. So it's kind of on par with FIU and their technical clubs, or like FIU doesn't really support them that much. But with the classes, I felt that, the professors really cared. Um, the professors let students collaborate as long as you put your name. Like if we worked on a homework together, then I would just have to put your name and that was fine. We could have the same answers, as long as we gave each other credit. So that's, and it also promotes that teamwork, the interpersonal skills that you need as an engineer. So I think if FIU could promote more collaboration, it would help. And also office hours. Like I feel like office hours here are not as helpful from what I've seen. Um, and it's also very limited, but it's because teachers or professors are juggling so many things at the same time. Over there, they just had like multiple office hours, they had multiple TAs per
Mhm.
class, and all the TAs are super helpful. The professors are super helpful. Or like if you got stuck on a homework, I would just like, set it aside and then bring it up in office hours. And instead of spending an hour trying to figure it out myself in the middle of the night, I would just, spend 10 minutes in office hours and make progress. So I think that also really helped manage my class time because there were some people at Penn where they wanted to figure out themselves and they spent like twice as long on homeworks than I did. And I was only able to spend less time because I knew office hours was a resource that I could use.
And you feel like that's not as available at FIU.
Yeah, and even if it is, I feel like it's not as helpful also. Um, just because there's only one professor, and if that one professor is not a good professor, then you're gonna have like 15 people in a 1 hour
Yeah,
office hours, and sometimes
yeah,
you won't even get to ask your question.
yeah. I worked as an LA for about a year. Honestly it's the funding. They don't pay the LAs
Yeah.
enough. We get paid like barely anything and it's
Wow.
yeah, and I also think it's not as like well promoted. I
Yeah.
would have a lot of students. I would sit in this classroom for like basically the whole semester and it would be empty. And then on the last day, when the teacher tells them, hey, by the way, there's an office hour that you can come to, there's like 20 students there. And I have to like, manage my time and I'm not even trained for that.
Yeah.
So that's not about that, but I do agree. The LA program here does need some work. And there is actually a project that one of the voceros is working on to improve.
Nice. That's
Um,
awesome. And I think you make a good point. I had a friend who was in LA. He also said like his office hours are always empty. He just use that as class time. But then people are struggling in the class. So
yeah,
why
yeah.
aren't you going to office hours?
Yeah, I think just students just aren't aware and they don't really make it a more like integrated part of the like class. Like, like going to office hours you should go at least one time per semester, at least to just check something out or to do something.
Oh, that reminds me. I completely forgot about this. In Penn, you have, let's say, like, you would have two classes. I'm trying to remember the exact structure, but basically, there was a difference between a lecture and a recitation. I don't know if you've heard of recitations. I had never heard of it until Penn, where it's basically the lecture is where you learn the topics and it's taught by the professor. And then a recitation is led by the TA, and you're just doing examples, um, applying the knowledge that you learn. So it's kind of like classwork is the best way I could describe it. Some recitations were like mandatory, some were optional, but it was kind of the way I see it, it was kind of like an in between office hours and lecture was this recitation where you get to apply your learnings, and you also have a TA walking you through how to approach the problem and answering any questions that you may have. So I thought that helped a lot. Even though as a student you're like, damn, like I have to go, like I have more class time now, but it was honestly really helpful.
That's really, I mean, wish they would have that here.
Yeah.
Um, okay, cool. So, getting down to the last few questions.
Okay.
Was there ever any part of you applying for jobs, applying for these different clubs, the internships, transferring? Did you ever feel self-conscious about yourself as an applicant when you were applying to these things? And particularly in the engineering field, which can be quite daunting. What could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it was my first year here at FIU, and I had got an internship every summer since I started. So I was like, okay, this is my last summer. About to get my fourth internship and then like set myself up for success. And this time I was a lot more selective in what I was applying to because I had already done like the whole venturing out to different fields, seeing what you like. So I thought, okay, this is my last internship. This should be very aligned to what I'm trying to do once I graduate. So I applied to all these product management roles, but I think I got an interview for one, and that one I went to the final round, and I didn't end up getting it, and all the other ones like I never even got an interview. So that definitely, I guess, like again, maybe self-conscious of me as an applicant, um like why am I hearing back? I have three internships. This is my last semester, my last chance to get an internship in the industry that I actually want to work in. And I was never able to find anything. To be fair, I think I could have worked harder to like applying to jobs and improving my resume and networking. I was just doing like applications, but then I also could have been like more organized about it. So I also think the main reason why I couldn't hear back was because I was so focused on these soft skills because that's where I shined almost. Um, when they would ask like, "Oh, have you worked on a technical team?" That's what one person asked me. Have you worked on a technical team before? And I was like I was uh, near the end of the spring semester. I was like, "Yo, I'm president of a club, but I guess no, I haven't been part of a technical team since freshman year when I was in the aerospace team." And this was my already that was my first year, and this was my fourth year in college. So I think that really hurt my chances as an applicant. I was so focused on these soft skills and about being product manager and this and that that I never put in enough time to build my technical skills, and that plus not finding the right opportunities or taking the time to tailor my resume and network and do all these things you're supposed to do. I didn't end up getting anything that summer. So with the presidency, I just told myself, like, you know what, I'm gonna treat this presidency as my own little internship. And so I did research on what product managers do, what like I guess frameworks that they use to run teams, and then I ended up applying that into the club. So in the sense I had to like create my own, but it was only because I didn't find anything. So that was definitely tough. And I would say always have, regardless of whatever industry you're going, you should always have like be part of a technical club and part of a professional club. The technical club will give you the hard skills that you need, and then a professional club like Shep, Nesby, Sui, they'll turn those hard skills into an offer. And I was missing that technical club.
Yeah, that actually was going to lead to my next question. So You mentioned that as you were searching for an internship, you had developed your soft skills, but your hard technical skills weren't as apparent. So how much do you feel of like your real world understanding of engineering and management and these hard skills did you learn through your education versus your like hands-on personal work?
I would say hard skills, it's like very basic level. I would say like most of the engineering like core classes I took at Penn. So I don't know if I can speak to FIU, but like at Penn I did learn like MATLAB, for example, and I learned I think like Java and C, but these were stuff that I took like Java and C were freshman year. By the time it was my fourth year in college, I was still like basic, like that was my proficient. It was like basic or beginner.
Mhm.
Um, if I were to go for a mechanical engineering like internship, then I think the classes are good for the foundation, which is like stress strain curve or like moment analysis or force analysis, free body diagrams, all this like the foundations. But I think jobs are looking for, okay, how did you apply this learning? And I think especially at FIU, they don't really give you a job, like an opportunity to apply it. So my labs at Penn were very hands-on. There was a lot of like laser cutting, 3D printing. Um, we had to build like a water tower that was both like the water tower basically combined fluids, like fluid dynamics with mechanics and strength of materials because you have to build the water tower, make it sturdy enough, and then you have to create like a nozzle to empty out the water tower. And I haven't seen anything like that at FIU. I think the labs are very lacking at FIU. The labs should be places where you're doing like a lot of hands-on stuff and you're applying the knowledge that you've learned. And from what I've seen, labs at FIU are just a lot like paperwork. It's like
Yeah.
they're more experiments,
Yeah.
experiments that are set up for you that you're following and doing a report on, as opposed to, hey, this is the challenge. Now use your learning and your own creativity to like meet the criteria of the challenge, as opposed to just a lab that's preset for you.
Yeah, there's like the pre-lab and then the lab and then the post-lab and all this.
Exactly. And I'm like, what? I'm learning to write. Okay, cool. But how is this
Yeah,
helping me in the real? But I should be working with team members on creating something. So I
because
think
that's what
I
engineering
like that.
is.
Yeah. So instead of doing like one lab a week, I remember my junior year, it was throughout the semester, there was 3 labs. And it was like multiple weeks. It was like 4 weeks per lab, and you're building up to it. And there was some emphasis on documentation and calculations and all this, but it was a lot more open-ended. And I think if FIU can have more open-ended labs, then that'll be something that even if I didn't have any technical club experience or technical internship, I can still put those labs on my resume. Like when I think of the stuff that I did in my labs at Penn, I was like, I can put that in my portfolio, I can put that on my resume. Then I think of the stuff that they do here at Penn and like my fluids lab, which like what you said, pre-lab, lab, and post-lab. And I don't feel like putting any of that on my resume. It's
Yeah,
just
because it
I
doesn't, yeah,
followed instructions and
yeah,
I didn't and I got like a 50% error.
yeah, yeah, right.
So I would say the labs will could definitely be improved at FIU.
It's a great point. I think the only thing that I know of that's like that here is called the Edge Lab. I don't know if you've heard
Yeah,
of it. They have like some 3D printing, wood burning and like all different like hands-on things you can do. But it's I think I don't know if it's only offered for the honor students or if it's only
tech.
advertised. I don't know. But it's like
Yeah,
not really known. I think I know they're trying to expand it, but yeah, I agree. There definitely needs to be a lot more.
yeah. I actually worked on my senior design project at the Edge Lab, and they were like,
Really?
"Yeah, this is made for honor students, but like the
Yeah.
more the merrier, spread the word out." This was
Mhm.
because it's on main campus. So
Right,
The
right,
vast
right,
majority of engineering students are
right.
in EC, and you're like, hey, we have this lab on main campus. Like, not a lot of people are gonna go.
Yeah, I didn't realize that actually. Yeah, it doesn't. It's a disconnect because you guys have your own separate campus and they can't even come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Um, okay, so if you could, would you change anything about your path that you've taken in your undergraduate experience to now entering the workforce? And what would you change?
I don't think I would change the decisions because I'm happy with the result. My end goal was to find a job in Miami that combined engineering and business, and I was able to find that. So I definitely wouldn't change any of the decisions I made. I think what I could have done was be a lot more intentional with my actions, and also like during my time at Penn, during my time at FIU, during my gap semester, just I guess go a little easier on myself. Don't be so hard on myself. Yeah, I mean, we're all just figuring it out. That's what college is for. Whether you change majors or you change institutions, college is the time to do that. College is the time to take classes and maybe you learn not to like something or that you do like something or yeah, just get to know people. So I think, yeah, I would definitely say the my approach to situations to not be so hard on myself and and not worry about I have to get the most out of everything at all times. Like I have time as long as I'm working towards my goal, then like that's enough. I don't have to overdo it and burn myself out. And also the fact that like always be working towards a goal and make sure that that goal is something that you set for yourself and not something that you assume you should be doing based off other people's perception. So I think again, I wouldn't change any of the decisions, but if I were to try to like order it, it would be first, I would constantly be reviewing like, okay, is this what I want for me? Like, what am I working towards? Am I working towards something that I want for me? And it's like, okay, this is my goal. This is what I want, not what everybody else wants. And then step two would be, okay, what am I doing towards that goal? I don't have to overdo it. I just have to be doing like something. And then number three, if I mess up, if that goal changes, if I don't like what I'm doing, it's okay. Just pivot. You learn something regardless, and to take it easy on yourself. So those would be like the three things in order that I wish I would have done throughout, basically like every semester.
Mhm. That's good, nice. Um, okay, so my last question. Um, if you could give advice to undergraduate students now, either in engineering or tech or really any area, and they're trying to figure out their path, or maybe they don't know if they like what they're doing, or they don't know if they even like the institution that they're at, what advice would you give to them?
I think my first advice, especially if they're at FIU, is this is very particular to FIU, but also in general. If there's no financial reason that you have to graduate in 4 years, don't graduate in 4 years. Like if some people won't change their majors because if they do, it'll set them back. Now, if you have financial reasons, like no, like I have to graduate in 4 years because I don't know, maybe you're international or maybe your FAFSA is running out or something, then that okay, I understand. But if there's no financial reason to do it and you're worried about it setting you back, it doesn't matter. Like I graduated in 5 years. A lot of my friends graduated in 5 years. I have a friend who graduated in 3 years because he did like summer classes every year. And when he graduated, he couldn't find a job because he spent all his time doing classes. So I think there's this notion of graduating in 4 years, if not earlier, because earlier graduates like, whoa, you're more accomplished. You did it faster, when that's not really the case. So that'd be my biggest thing about FIU is they're always, especially advisors, they're pushing you to graduate for 4 years. They want to have a good 4 year graduation rate. When I don't think that's good for students. So that'd be my first thing, my biggest thing.
Mhm.
And second thing is, again, like don't count yourself out. If you're considering an opportunity, I would say go for it and then let, I guess, the universe decide. So if you're in between two internships, you're like, oh, which one do I apply to? Like, just apply to both. And if you get into one of them and not the other, it's like, okay, decision's made. Um, so a lot of people want to be so in control of everything. Uh, and really, like, we have very limited control. So if you're looking into different opportunities, apply to all of them. And then based off what you hear back, based off, again, what I mentioned about the finances before, um, maybe the finances you don't think they'll work out, but you don't know yet. It's not in your control yet. So that's another thing. Like put yourself out there, even if it means letting someone else. When I say letting someone else make a decision for you, it's not like, oh, you should do this, but yeah, basically like don't count yourself out in that sense, even if it means relinquishing some control and being a little uncomfortable because you don't know what's gonna happen, what the result is gonna be. And the last thing is similar to what I mentioned in my last point, like previous question is like again, unless there's like a very strong reason to, like your parents will disown you or something. But like don't do anything for anybody else. Do it for you because at the end you're the one that has to live with the consequence of your actions for the rest of your life, not anybody else. So if your parents like, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, who's gonna deal with the stress of school, of the stress of being in a profession that you don't like for the rest of your life? Not them. They're gonna be like, oh, my son's a lawyer, my daughter's a doctor. But really you're the one that's facing the consequences. So just keep in mind that like it's your life. You're the one that has to deal with the consequences. So do it for you and not for anybody else. And I think that was something pivotal that helped me gather up the courage to leave Penn, even though everybody was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you got a year and a half left. Just stick it through.
Yeah.
So those would be the three things.
Thank you for that. Um, okay, so I don't have any more questions at this time. But if there's anything else you'd like to add, if you feel like we didn't cover or anything else that you would like undergraduate students to know, go ahead. If not, yep.
I think, yeah, I would just emphasize the framework of like during your time in college is like professional club, technical club, and find a major that you like. And then the last thing would be like focusing on just getting A's and B's. Maybe not C's because some companies are picky about that, but A's and B's. It doesn't have to be straight A's.
Mhm.
And I think if you do those four things through college, like you should be able to find something that is at least close to what you're looking for. Um, but if you don't do any of those four things, like if there's one of those four things, if you're missing, like maybe you stick with a major that you don't like because you don't want it to set you back, or you're so focused on getting all A's, or you're passing your class with C's and B's, then that can also hurt you. So I think those four are like the foundation of setting you up for success after you graduate. But I think that other than that, I don't think there's anything else I would add.
Mhm. Writing that down for myself. So I can, okay. I'm gonna stop the recording now. Thank you for answering and doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad that I was able to help and hopefully help future students too.
Hey guys, May 2025, Alice here again. I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I really felt like GQ gave a lot of good wisdom and really shared his experience in such a detailed way that it really changed my perspective on the idea of colleges and the idea of going to like the big name university when I first interviewed him. And even now, re-listening to this episode, it really has changed my mind about really what we consider successful and the terms of success. So I hope you guys found this episode really insightful as much as I did. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning into STEM Files.